No one could handle the billionaire's daughter until a single black janitor did the impossible. And that discovery would cost dearly those who dared to underestimate him. "Are you sure you want to leave this man alone with your daughter?" Victoria Hammond's question echoed through the executive office with a venom disguised as maternal concern that only high society people can master. Diana Westbrook, CEO of Westbrook Industries and one of the most powerful women in the country, hesitated for a moment. Before her, Marcus Thompson stood motionless, discreetly holding the cleaning cloth as he watched the 6-year-old child cowering behind the imported mahogany desk. Little Sophia had driven away 17 nannies in 6 months. Renowned therapists gave up after a single session. Diana herself could barely approach her daughter without triggering panic attacks that lasted for hours. "Mom, with all due respect," Diana replied coldly, "$12,000 a week in specialists couldn't even get my daughter to look at them. If Marcus gets 5 minutes of peace, it will be a miracle." Victoria adjusted her Cartier glasses, analyzing Marcus as if he were a museum curiosity. "Honey, do you really believe that a janitor can solve what Harvard-trained doctors couldn't?" Marcus was 34 years old and had 3 jobs to support his diabetic mother and pay for a 1-bedroom apartment in Queens. No one in that gilded Manhattan building knew that he spent his early mornings studying child psychology online, or that he always carried a small storybook in his uniform pocket. "Mrs. Victoria," Marcus spoke for the first time, his calm voice cutting through the tension. "Sometimes children just need someone who isn't afraid to sit on the floor with them." The silence that followed was broken by an unexpected sound. Sophia had stopped crying. Diana looked at Marcus with an expression he couldn't quite read: gratitude, surprise, or something more dangerous. Hope. "One chance," Diana murmured. "Just one." Victoria sighed dramatically, gathering her Hermes bag. "Well, when this goes wrong, don't say I didn't warn you. Some people just can't understand certain responsibilities." As Victoria stomped out in her $1,000 heels, Marcus slowly knelt down beside the table. From his pocket, he pulled out something that made Sophia lift her head for the first time in weeks. At that moment, neither Diana nor Victoria knew they were witnessing the beginning of something that would completely change their lives, because Marcus Thompson kept secrets that people like them could never imagine. Victoria could never imagine secrets that would soon turn their condescension into utter despair. If you're enjoying the story of twists and justice, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because what happened in the next few hours would prove that underestimating someone based on skin color and social class can cost much more than any rich person can imagine. What Marcus had taken out of his pocket was a small book of children's stories, with worn pages and notes in the margins. Sophia stared at him, her eyes red from crying, finally showing a glimmer of curiosity. "It's about a boy who lost his father," Marcus said softly, sitting down on the marble floor as if it were the most natural thing in the world. But he discovered that his father was still with him, in a special way. Diana watched in silence, barely able to believe it. In 6 months, no one had even managed to get Sophia to lift her head. In the days that followed, Victoria Hammond intensified her campaign to protect the Westbrook family from what she considered a dangerous and reckless decision. "Diana, dear, are you really going to entrust Sophia to an employee?" Victoria asked during lunch at Manhattan's most exclusive private club, lowering her voice on the word employee as if it were contagious. "Think of the responsibility. Think of what the other mothers will say." Around them, society women whispered between bites of $40 organic salad. Diana knew those looks. The same elite who had questioned her ability to run her father's company after his death 5 years earlier. "Marcus has gotten results," Diana replied firmly. "Results?" Victoria laughed, a sharp sound that made several heads turn. "Darling, you're confusing charity with competence. This man is clearly taking advantage of your vulnerability. How many of these guys have you seen trying to infiltrate families like ours?" What Victoria didn't know was that at that very moment, Marcus was in the Westbrook family's apartment, not only caring for Sophia, but observing every detail of the family dynamics with the precision of someone who understood childhood trauma far better than anyone in that gilded environment could imagine. While Sophia drew beside him, Marcus discreetly jotted down notes in a small notebook. Child exhibits classic symptoms of complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Selective social avoidance, responds positively to narratives of overcoming adversity, requires unconventional therapeutic approach. The truth is that Marcus was not just a janitor who studied psychology in his spare time. At 28, he had been one of Boston's most promising child therapists, a Harvard graduate specializing in family trauma. He'd lost everything: his career, his apartment, his fiancée, when he was falsely accused of misconduct by an influential family who did not want to pay his fees. 6 years later, he was rebuilding his life brick by brick, working at jobs no one in the elite would consider worthy, studying voraciously to find a way back to what he loved most, helping broken children become whole again. "Why aren't you afraid of me?" Sophia asked suddenly, interrupting his thoughts. Marcus smiled, putting away his notebook. "Because I've been broken too. And when you're broken, you learn to recognize other people who are broken. But broken doesn't mean defective, Sophia. It means you've survived something difficult." That night, Victoria called Diana 3 times. "I found out some things about your employee," she said, venom dripping from every word. "He was fired from his previous job in Boston. Serious accusations. Do you really want to risk Sophia's safety?" Diana felt a chill in her stomach. "What kind of accusations?" "The kind that men like him often face when they try to get too close to families like ours. I warned you, Diana. People of that social level always have ulterior motives." What Victoria had discovered was only half the story, and Marcus Thompson was about to prove that underestimating someone based on racial and social prejudices is not only morally wrong, it can be devastatingly costly for those who make that mistake. Because every humiliation, every whispered comment, every condescending glance was being carefully documented by a man who had learned the hard way that sometimes the best defense is a strategic and surgical exposure of the truth. While the Manhattan elite planned his exclusion, Marcus was organizing something much more powerful: irrefutable proof of his competence and integrity. And when the time was right, people like Victoria would discover that there are terrible consequences for those who tried to destroy a man who has already lost everything and has nothing left to lose except his dignity. 3 weeks later, Victoria had turned her personal crusade against Marcus into a systematic campaign of destruction. Calls were made to the right people: members of the Westbrook Industries Board of Directors, other high society families, even contacts in the elite social media. "It's just not appropriate," Victoria whispered during her exclusive lunches at the Metropolitan Club. "A woman of Diana's standing, allowing a cleaning employee to have unrestricted access to her daughter. Imagine if something happened." The strategy was subtle but devastatingly effective. Seemingly innocent comments about parental responsibility and dangerous precedents began circulating among Manhattan's elite. Diana began receiving concerned calls from investors, board members, and even other mothers at Sophia's private school. During this time, Marcus continued his work with Sophia, fully aware of the storm brewing around him. Each morning, he would arrive at the Westbrooks' apartment and find the girl a little more open, a little more willing to smile. "Marcus," Sophia said one morning, showing him a drawing, "I drew you here with me and Mom. Are we a family now?" Marcus's heart tightened. "Family is who chooses to stay with you, even when things get tough," he replied, knowing full well how tough things were about to get. What neither Victoria nor Diana knew was that Marcus had begun to meticulously document every interaction, every suspicious comment, every attempt at sabotage. His small apartment in Queens had been transformed into a discreet operations center, where he organized evidence with the precision of an experienced lawyer. In one blue folder, he kept all of Diana's text messages showing Sophia's positive progress. In another, audio recordings, legally obtained with Diana's consent, of the impromptu therapy sessions he had conducted.
And in a third folder, the most important of all, persecuted by the Wellington family after refusing to falsify a psychological report that would exonerate their son from allegations of abuse against a nanny. When Marcus stood firm in his professional assessment, the Wellingtons used their influence to destroy his career with fabricated accusations. But Marcus had saved everything. Every email, every recording, every document that proved not only his innocence, but also the conspiracy orchestrated against him. For 6 years, he had waited patiently for the right moment to use this information. And now, watching Victoria Hammond repeat the exact same pattern of behavior, Marcus realized that moment had arrived. "Dr. Martinez," Marcus said on the phone that night, calling his former Harvard colleague, "I need a favor." Dr. Carmen Martinez was a child neuropsychologist at Boston Children's Hospital and had been one of the few people who believed Marcus during his persecution. "Marcus, of course, anything. How are you?" "Working with a traumatized child in New York. I need a second professional opinion and perhaps expert testimony about my therapeutic methods." Carmen laughed. "Still using that unconventional approach that drove the professors crazy? Of course I'll help. Send me the details." As Victoria intensified her attacks, spreading increasingly poisonous rumors about Marcus's true intentions, he continued to work quietly. Every small victory with Sophia was documented. Every bit of progress was recorded with scientific precision. Diana began to feel the pressure. "Marcus," she said one afternoon, her voice tense, "I need to ask you something. Victoria showed me some articles about you from Boston." Marcus nodded calmly. "I know exactly which articles. Mrs. Diana, I can show you exactly what happened in Boston if you want to see the whole truth." "The whole truth?" "The documents that prove I
was persecuted for refusing to lie to protect an abuser. The recordings that show how a wealthy family tried to destroy my career when they couldn't buy me off." Marcus paused. "And the evidence that I'm being attacked again for the same reason, because some people can't accept that someone like me could be competent." Deanna was silent for a long moment. You documented everything?" "Miss Deanna, when you're a Black man working with wealthy families, you quickly learn to always protect yourself. Every conversation, every step forward with Sophia, every attempt to discredit me, it's all documented." That night, Victoria called Deanna once more. "Honey, I hope you understand that I'm just trying to protect you and Sophia. This man is clearly dangerous." "Victoria," Deanna replied, her voice colder than a Manhattan winter, "how about we arrange a dinner? You, me, and a few other people. I'm sure everyone will be very interested to hear your concerns about Marcus." On the other end of the line, Victoria smiled, thinking she had finally convinced Deanna. "Perfect, dear. I'll invite some friends who are also concerned." What Victoria didn't realize was that Marcus had spent 3 weeks meticulously preparing his defense, gathering allies, and organizing evidence that would not only clear his name, but also reveal the true nature of the attacks he had been suffering. Because when you are systematically underestimated by people who confuse privilege with superiority, sometimes the best strategy is to let them dig their own social grave while you document every shovel of dirt they throw at you. And Marcus Thompson was about to prove that the difference between a broken man and a prepared man can be the total destruction of those who dared to underestimate him. The dinner took place on the rooftop of Deanna's apartment, with a panoramic view of Central Park. Victoria arrived radiant, accompanied by 3 other high society matrons: Margaret Thornfield, heir to banking dynasty; Susan Blackwood, wife of a senator; and Patricia Vanderbilt, daughter of oil tycoons. "Dear Deanna," Victoria said, kissing the air beside the hostess's face, "I hope you have finally realized the delicate situation you have put yourself in." The 4 women settled at the dinner table, $1,000 French wine glasses sparkling under the light of the crystal chandelier. They all expected Deanna to confess to having made an error in judgment with Marcus. "Actually," Deanna smiled,
I'd like you to meet someone. The door opened, and Marcus entered, but not in his janitor's uniform. He was wearing an elegant suit, carrying a leather briefcase, and his posture had completely changed. He now looked like a confident professional. Victoria almost
Choked on her wine. Diana, what does this mean? Ladies, Marcus said, his voice clear and polite, allow me to introduce myself properly. Dr. Marcus Thompson, PhD in child psychology from Harvard Medical School, specializing in trauma and cognitive development at Massachusetts General Hospital. The silence at the table was deafening. Patricia let out an almost inaudible, impossible. Marcus calmly opened his briefcase. Over the past few weeks, I have systematically documented every comment, every attempt at sabotage, every manifestation of racial prejudice I have received from you. He distributed identical folders to each of the women. It's all here. Audio recordings, screenshots of messages, third-party testimonials. Victoria opened her folder with trembling hands. Inside were complete transcripts of her phone conversations with Diana, screenshots of her messages in a Ladies of Manhattan WhatsApp group where she had spread lies about Marcus, and even photos of her whispering in other people's ears during social events. You recorded us? Margaret stammered. Only when you were talking about me in public places, Marcus replied politely. All perfectly legal, but that's only the first part. Diana stood up. Marcus, tell them about Boston. With pleasure. Marcus projected a presentation onto the living room wall. In 2018, I was the youngest child therapist to receive Harvard's Award for Excellence in Pediatric Trauma. I worked with Boston's most influential families, including the Wellingtons. You know the family, I'm sure. Victoria paled. The Wellingtons were practically royalty in American high society. When I refused to falsify a psychological report to protect their son from accusations of sexual abuse against a nanny, they orchestrated a systematic campaign to destroy my career, just like you tried to do here. The screen showed court documents, emails from the Wellingtons, recordings of conversations where they admitted to fabricating evidence against Marcus. The difference, Marcus continued, is that this time I was prepared. Susan Blackwood tried to get up. I need to go. Please stay, Marcus smiled. Dr. Carmen Martinez, head of child neuropsychology at Boston Children's Hospital, is on Zoom. The screen changed, showing a middle-aged Hispanic woman in a doctor's office. Good evening, ladies. I'm Dr. Martinez, and I can confirm that Dr. Thompson is not only one of the most brilliant therapists I've ever met, but also the most honest man I've ever worked with. The accusations in Boston were completely fabricated. We have complete evidence to prove it. Dr. Martinez continued. I can also confirm that little Sophia Westbrook's progress under Dr. Thompson's care is simply extraordinary. In 3 weeks, he has achieved results that entire teams of specialists have failed to achieve in months. Victoria finally found her voice, but it came out as a desperate squeak. That's absurd. You can't humiliate us like this. Humiliate? Marcus raised an eyebrow. Miss Victoria, I have merely presented facts. The humiliation comes from your own actions. Diana joined the conversation. Victoria, you called 6 members of my board of directors spreading lies about Marcus. You insinuated to other mothers at the school that I was putting Sophia in danger. You told my building's concierge that Marcus was dangerous and should be watched. Each accusation was accompanied by evidence on the screen, recordings, messages, testimonies. Patricia attempted one last desperate defense, but he's just an employee. An employee? Dr. Martinez laughed on screen. Dr. Thompson has published 17 articles in international medical journals. He was a consultant to the WHO on child trauma policies. He turned down job offers from Stanford and Yale to continue working with low-income families in Boston. Marcus picked up another document. And now, ladies, we have a decision to make. I can sue each of you for defamation, harassment, and racial discrimination. The damage to my reputation is easily quantifiable in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. The terror in the eyes of the 4 women was palpable. Their husbands, their social positions, their businesses. Everything could be destroyed by a racial discrimination scandal. Or, Marcus continued calmly, you can use your influence for something productive for the first time in your lives. Diana smiled. Marcus is going to open a treatment center for traumatized children in Manhattan.
a place where any child, regardless of family income, can receive the best possible treatment. You will fully fund this center.
And you will use your social networks to promote racial equality and inclusion. Consider it social reparation. Victoria tried to protest, but Margaret silenced her with a glance. They all knew they had no choice. "How much? How much do you need?" Susan asked, defeated. "2 million to start," Diana replied casually. "Each of you contribute 500,000. It's less than you spend on handbags in a year." As the four women signed checks with trembling hands, Marcus calmly put away his documents. "Oh, and ladies, Sophia asked me today if I would be her permanent teacher. I said yes. So, we'll be seeing a lot of each other over the next few years." The dinner ended with four of Manhattan's most powerful women walking silently to their cars, each carrying not only the humiliation of defeat, but the certainty that they had been outdone by someone they had underestimated so grotesquely that the lesson would never be forgotten. But one question remained in the air as Victoria got into her Mercedes, trembling with rage. Would this public defeat be enough to completely destroy the empire of arrogance she had built over decades? Or did Marcus still have more cards up his sleeve to ensure she never forgot the price of underestimating a brilliant black man? 6 months later, the Marcus Thompson Center for Advanced Child Therapy occupied 3 floors of an elegant building on the Upper East Side. The name was engraved in gold letters at the entrance, impossible to ignore by anyone passing by on the avenue. Sophia ran through the hallways, smiling and hugging other children arriving for their sessions. The same girl who had terrorized 17 nannies was now the center's unofficial little ambassador, helping other traumatized children feel welcome. "Dr. Thompson," Diana said, looking out the window of her office at the center, 10 children were accepted onto the waiting list today. We have families from 5 different states wanting to bring their children here." Marcus smiled, wearing his doctor's coat with the Harvard Medical School emblem embroidered on the pocket. "And they will all pay what they can afford, not a penny more." The payment system Marcus had created was revolutionary. Wealthy families paid premium rates, completely subsidizing treatment for low-income families. Victoria and her friends had not only financed the center, their names were permanently associated as founding patrons of a social inclusion project. The irony was delicious. Women who had tried to destroy Marcus based on racial prejudice were now publicly celebrated as champions of equality, forced to smile at charity events where Marcus was applauded as a hero. 3 weeks earlier, the New York Times had published a cover story, "The Janitor Who Revolutionized Child Therapy in Manhattan." The photo showed Marcus in his office with Sophia at his side, both smiling. The article detailed his journey from Harvard to the center, mentioning the enthusiastic support.
Victoria had read the article 5 times, each word stabbing at her pride. Worse still, her friends of the club had begun to avoid her, whispering that she didn't know how to recognize talent and had almost caused an unnecessary racial scandal. "Did you see that Patricia candled her charity lunch?" Margaret had commented maliciously during the last meeting of the Ladies of Manhattan. "They say she no longer wants to be associated with certain attitudes." The social ostracism Victoria faced was subtle but devastating. Important invitations stopped coming, seats at charity event tables were filled, her opinions at meetings were politely ignored. Marcus, on the other hand, had become a celebrity in the medical community. 3 universities had offered him full professorships. The American Psychological Association had named him Innovator of the Year. His methodology was being studied in 12 countries. "Marcus," Sophia said, pulling his hand as they walked through Central Park on a Sunday afternoon, "will you still be my therapist when I grow up?" "Whenever you need me, princess, but I think soon you'll be helping other children just like Marcus." Diana watched the interaction, still impressed by the transformation. Sophia had not only overcome her trauma, she had become a more empathetic and resilient child than many who had never faced adversity. That week, Marcus had received an unexpected call. "Dr. Thompson, this is Michael Wellington from Boston. We'd like to talk about that misunderstanding from a few years ago." The Wellington family, who had destroyed his career, now offered $2 million in compensation and a public apology. Their son had finally confessed to the sexual assaults, confirming everything Marcus had reported in his original psychological assessment. "I don't need the money," Marcus had replied calmly, "but I want the apology published in the same newspaper that published the false accusations against me." Last Tuesday, Victoria had run into Marcus by chance at the entrance to the corporate building, where she still had an office. For a moment, their eyes met. "Dr. Thompson?" she said, her voice almost inaudible. "Miss Victoria," Marcus replied politely, holding the door open for her to pass. She hesitated. "I wanted to say that you're proud to have contributed to the center. I'm glad to hear it. Sophia always asks about the kind ladies who made it all possible." Victoria knew he was being kind out of politeness, not forgiveness. The humiliation was complete. She would forever be remembered as the woman who tried to destroy a hero, forced to smile publicly while financing his success. Marcus had learned that the best revenge is not to destroy your enemies. It is to force them to finance your success while they watch powerless as their own social irrelevance grows each day. Today, when children of all ethnicities and social classes play in the corridors of the center that bears his name, Marcus knows that he has won in a way that is far more satisfying than any lawsuit could ever provide. Victoria tried to destroy a talented black man based on prejudice. She ended up destroying her own reputation while building his empire. The lesson is simple. When you underestimate someone because of their skin color, social class, or background, you're not just being cruel. You're being foolish enough to finance your own defeat. If this story of justice and overcoming adversity has touched you, subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove that intelligence and dignity always win out over arrogance and prejudice. Leave a comment. Have you ever faced discrimination? How did you react? Because sometimes the best revenge is simply to be so brilliant that your enemies are forced to applaud while dying of rage.